Come and dream with me.
Hello and welcome to What Do You Want to Watch? The Explosion Network's premier media podcast. Every fortnight we get together to talk about movies, TV and online content and help you answer the question, if good neighbours become good friends, what do racist neighbours become? I'm your host, Ashley Hobley. Joining me today, Dylan Blight.
Jail people. Send them to jail.
Jail people.
Sure, yep. That's what we're going with. Lock them.
Yeah, okay, I'm just going to leave that one alone. On today's episode, we'll be talking a bit about what's in our watch history. We'll be covering a little bit of news, and we'll be talking about this week's top 3. But first, if you haven't noticed, in our podcast feed, we've got a spoiler cast for Godzilla vs. Kong. But Dylan, do you want to give your overall thoughts of the culmination of 4 movies worth of build-up? 3 movies built the build-up.
When you just said 4, I was like,
yeah, it was 3.
It is 4, hey? I don't know.
This is the 4th, so I guess.
This is the 4th, yeah. So, culmination of 3 movies leading to a 4th. But anyway, yeah, no, it's alright. I had a good time. It was really good to watch it on the big screen, seeing old big boy Kong smash up lizard boy Godzilla. Good fun. I gave it, what, a 6.5, I think, in my review. It's been a while since I read it now. But, yeah, once again, like the past movies, the biggest letdowns, obviously, the human characters. They're just kind of... I didn't mind one side, the Kong characters, like, because they're split up, and then you have Millie Bobby Brown's characters, her, like, group, the Godzilla crew. Didn't really think they needed to be in the movie at all, so that was kind of annoying. And then I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Godzilla and Kong only fight twice. You can see their 2 fights in the trailer, and I think they should have had more than that. I think they should have gone the full 3 rounds, bell to bell, full 20-minute rounds each. No disqualifications.
Yep.
Unsanctioned match. After dark, should have done what needed to be done. But no, it looks really good. CGI is great, obviously. So yeah. So go all in. But it was all right. I enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy these monster movies, and it was bad. It was way better in my opinion than what was it called? Kings of Monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a good time as well. I mean, I feel like the Godzilla side was probably the weaker side. The Kong. Apparently, the story coming out afterwards is that Toei said they're not allowed to show Godzilla with emotion.
What?
He wasn't allowed to emote during the film. That was their request.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a close-up of Godzilla where, like, it's very emotive. Like
he's not allowed to cry or care about any other characters. It's just a force of nature.
By the way, did you see that story where whoever screenwriter, whoever turned Adam Wingard being like, oh, there's like 4 hours there's 4 hours of footage, and then they're like, oh, don't expect a director's cut though, or whatever. It's like, yeah, there's usually like a lot more footage for any movie. Do you remember back in the day when we had DVDs and everyone would just like delve into like deleted scenes and be like, man, there's like half an hour of deleted scenes here, and everyone was just like, yeah, but and you'd watch them all, and then you'd watch them all and go, oh, that was kind of cool to watch as is, but yeah, there's a reason these are all bonus features. Now it's like after Zack Snyder cut, it's like
put all the footage in the film. No wastage.
Of all the movies I want to go for 4 hours, it is not Godzilla and Kong. I can tell
Unless
you.
Unless it's the extra 2 hours is just Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like they're getting tired. Still going.
If you want to tell me he cut out that third fight that I'm after, then
maybe
I'll come back.
But yeah, it's a good time, doing super well at the box office. We all thought that Christopher Nolan was going to save cinema, but apparently it's a radioactive lizard and a giant gorilla.
Now I saw that story. Is that because more cinemas have opened in America though?
I feel like it's because America is doing better currently, and the world in general is doing better at COVID. I think if Tenet had dropped now, it would still be doing these kind of numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Tenet dropped now, then they probably would have made more.
Yes.
But then you got to ask also other questions of like, if they didn't release Tenet and get the money that they did, because Tenet, I know in retrospect maybe people won't view it that way, but Tenet was still that first film to kind of get people not, like even here in Australia, that was the return for us. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like maybe it didn't make as much money as they hoped, but it still served that purpose of getting people
bringing
back into the
people's
cinema.
faith back into the cinema.
To get people more interested in coming back to the cinema, and you needed that warm up movie, I guess if you want to call it.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, check out Godzilla vs Kong in theaters everywhere. Dylan, you watched another film that was out in theaters. Nobody, starring your boy Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, so this is from the writer of the John Wick franchise, and the plot's very similar to John Wick in that it's what you assume is an ordinary household family man just living his life, and it's played by Bob Odenkirk, and he has a family. He's like 2 kids and a wife, and early in the movie, the movie starts with like one of those like really sped up montage things where it's like jump cut, where it's he pours his coffee, he catches the bus to work, he goes to his boring job, he comes home, he falls asleep, and then like, you know, goes next day. Really sets up how sort of mundane and repetitive his life is to a degree. And then early in the movie, his house is broken into in the middle of the night by 2 robbers, and he gets the jump on them, kind of, but then his son comes downstairs and like tackles one of them, and he has the chance to sort of swing the golf club or whatever he's got at them, but he decides not to. Anyway, the 2 of them all leave. None of his family's hurt by this or whatever, but people then begin sort of teasing him, I guess, to it a bit and being like, man, even the cop who shows up is like, man, if I had 2 people break into my house and I had the opportunity to kick their ass, I would have taken it, you know, like the free reign to go ham kind of thing. So that seems to push him over the edge to a bit. And then if you've seen the trailer, that leads into this bus scene where he takes on a bunch of hoodlums who happen to enter the bus he's sitting on that night. And he kind of just takes out his anger on them because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And unfortunately for Bob Odenkirk's character, one of those characters that he beats the shit out of is related, of course, to a Russian mob person or like big card, you know, like some Russian mob dude or whatever, you know. So
even Russian mob dudes need to ride the bus.
it was like his grandson or I don't even know the relation. Anyway, long story short, that's the setup for the movie. In that's what leads to the bigger confrontations and decisions being made. So
instead of somebody killing a dog, he beat up the dog, kind of.
Yeah, I guess if you wanna look. Well, the reason he is on the bus is because he's actually looking for he's trying to find the people that robbed him because they stole his daughter's kitty bracelet, which is a line you see in the trailer where he's yelling at them when he eventually finds them and says, "Give me back that goddamn kitty bracelet," which is just fucking ridiculous. So this isn't, of course, everyone's going to compare it to John Wick, and it very much feels like John Wick to a degree. However, the action and the combat, I feel, and I've actually checked if it's, I don't think it would be the exact same stunt team because that stunt team kind of just works with Keanu. Like that's his particular group that train him and sort of choreograph those fight scenes and the shootouts and whatever else. And Bob Odenkirk definitely doesn't have the gun combat or gun foreplay or whatever you want to call it that Keanu Reeves has definitely sort of mastered in those movies. But what he does do, I'm super impressed with. Like, this is the dude who, you know, years ago, if you'd asked, could Bob Odenkirk do one of these movies, do an action movie like this, I'd be like, fuck no. He's Jimmy McGill in Better Call Saul at the moment. He's not going to play an action star, but he does it so well on this movie. And it is that sort of combat, that visceral combat that you have in John Wick to a degree where, especially in the bus fight is quite intense and violent, where they definitely sell the fact that he hasn't got into a fight for years and years and years, and he has a little bit of, you know, what do you want to call it, fight rust on him, if you want to call it that. I don't know, you know, like he's just not in practice, and he gets his ass handed to him a bit during that fight as he has to work through it and stuff, so that makes the fight, and there's definitely no scenes in the movie where he's particularly like the superhero character that John Wick at times can be. Although the finale of this movie is absolute insanity. I think it's, to a degree, it becomes fucking Home Alone without spoiling it. And at first, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because I could kind of sense the direction the movie was going. But the way they pull it all together, and I don't even want to spoil. I'm sure if you look at IMDb, there's someone else in this movie that I actually did not know about because I don't recall seeing them in the trailer at all, like a pretty famous actor. And he has some fantastic scenes in this, but I actually had no idea he was in this movie until he showed up in the movie itself. I was like, okay, cool, whatever, go ahead. But it's definitely an enjoyable action movie. I would happily watch it again. It does feel a lot like a prologue though. Like this movie's ending and like everything about it, very much like it ends and it's like, okay, you want the sequel? I was like, yeah, I want the sequel. So, it definitely leaves it open, sets it up for a second one.
Okay, cool. So I checked out Academy Awards Best Picture nominee, The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman. Pretty much tells the story of, a father and a daughter. The father is suffering from dementia. Pretty much just like a few days kind of intercut with each other, very much told from the father's perspective of how he sees the world, I guess, kind of how he experiences things, like if I didn't know that it was about dementia, it would almost be a time travel movie or some sort of sci-fi theme where time is fucked up and things are happening out of order and that kind of stuff. A really interesting look. Anthony Hopkins is really great. Olivia Colman is really great. It's very moving and, it's a hard watch, obviously, knowing that he is not quite all there and, like, his things are not lining up properly and also trying to figure out where exactly he's remembering this from in the timeline because it takes place over, I want to say 10 years, but all the characters stay the same age and everything through the thing. The set design is really impressive. Like I noticed like halfway through the film, the flat that most of the film is set in, it kind of changes all the time, like slightly. Like chairs will show up suddenly, or the paintings will be different. Paintings will be moved and that kind of thing. Really well put together. Obviously, based on the play by the director Florian Zeller, that was well received as well. A really hard watch. Also seeing Olivia Colman's character like dealing with her relationship with her marriage and seeing the toll that caring for her father has on that as well. I can definitely see why it gets so much acclaim and that kind of thing. So The Father in most cinemas now, I think, except Tasmania.
Well, except Launceston, but based on the trailer, I actually thought it was just set over like a couple of weeks or something. But
no, it could almost be, but they're referencing several years apart. So really interesting film. So Dylan, you got me into this documentary, Q, Into the Storm, a HBO documentary from Cullen Hoback, who's acclaimed documentary maker. How'd you stumble across this one?
How did I come across this one?
Yeah.
I don't remember where I saw it at first, so I don't know. I was probably just browsing binge or something. I was trying to watch it week to week, but for some reason they dropped the first episode, I think, in day, like the same time it dropped in America, but then the second episode didn't drop the next week at the same time as America, but then the week after they dropped two, and I'm like, but whatever. Anyway, it's all out now. So 6 episodes. I think it's great. I definitely feel like this is a must-watch documentary to a degree. I feel like there's like 2 angles to this. So, like, as someone who's pretty aware of the subject matter that they're covering, like everything from 4chan, 8chan, QAnon, they talk about, links to things like Gamergate and through to, like all the different subgroups and spin-offs of these horrible dark side of the web stuff. I feel I'm like aware of most of what the documentary is covering, but it's really interesting to meet the people because the documentary focuses mostly on, I guess, quote unquote, the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like the subjects, the people he's interviewing, the core cast of characters in this documentary is like the creator of 8chan, like the people and then the people who he sells 8chan to, and the people who are running that, and then a bunch of QAnon YouTubers and supporters. Like there's no, but it also, I think the documentary does a pretty good job at, although I think it's pretty obvious that like like the way the dude, whatever his name is, Michael, or the documentary dude, the way he like laughs, or like you can see a look on his face at times, like you can tell that a lot of this is kind of just nonsense, ridiculous to him, but it's, you know, that's the documentary subject matter. The documentary, I also don't think doesn't like ham fist down your throat like this shit's fucked up, because it doesn't really need to. And that's kind of one thing I liked about it. You know, like it just presents, because all of this is so crazy, like the QAnon theories and everything like that. I like the way that it kind of just presents it. It doesn't like oversell how messed up it is, because it just presumes that anyone watching it will be like, this is nonsense. Like this is absolutely crazy town type stuff. So I appreciate that. But I'd say if you've heard about these sorts of things, or like especially if you have no fucking clue, if you're like, what's 4chan, what's 8chan, what's QAnon, what's all these sorts of things, if you've looked at any of the big things that have been happening around the world in the last 5 years, basically anytime there was mass murder, a lot of those people come from these boards. They are splinter groups of QAnon or part of QAnon and these sorts of things. They're always writing and spreading their message on these boards. So I think this documentary does a pretty good job for people who aren't aware of, like, sort of linking the pieces together and going, here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. Like, here's what's actually happening. And it also does a good job, I think, of selling a message that I don't think enough people take seriously, because it's, you know, you still have and I think maybe the world's getting a little bit better, but there was that degree for like years there where it would be like people wouldn't take what was happening on these places too serious, because much like the people on them, people were like, oh, it's just the internet. What's the worst that can happen? But then that kind of went unfiltered for so long. And what happened is you've now got these mass millions of people that have sort of been brainwashed and red pilled, as they like to put it. So I think it's really, really, really good. It's probably it'd be one of the best things I've watched all year so far, for sure.
Yeah, it was quite a captivating 6 episodes. I think you mentioned, I'll just say it, you mentioned I should watch it yesterday.
24 hours ago as of recording, yeah.
I've watched all 6 episodes in all 6 55-minute episodes by the time we recorded, even pushing the recording date back so I could finish it. Yeah, really interesting. I think maybe the title is a bit misleading because it is as much as it is a QAnon focused documentary, it is very much based around 8chan and the history of that, and it's kind of the history of that, those type of sites and that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's just it's so interlinked that it's like, how do you do it without?
I guess, you know, yeah. I feel like, you know, they could have done a completely separate one focusing on either like subject matter, but you know, it's one of those crazy stories where this guy just happened to be focusing on the right thing at the right time. Like, Writers Q was starting to become a thing. You know, he happened to hit up the creators of 8chan and said, hey, I think you guys, and follows them for several years, and seeing their relationships deteriorate.
I think it's from like, what, 2014-ish? 2013?
No, it would have been like 2016. Like,
was it?
2000, yeah.
Like,
because he started not long after Trump was inaugurated.
Well, there's some stuff.
That's when he started.
That, so, okay.
No, there were like covers before that, and like,
I wasn't sure how
goes into the history of going all the way back to, I can't remember, some sort of forum website that kind of seems to be the starting point for all this, through to like the anonymous hackers and that kind of thing, through to 4chan and Reddit and 8chan.
Yeah, there's a precursor to 4chan, and then there was 4chan. And then because 4chan had some level of moderation, because you can upload like child porn and shit, then they were like,
no, because you couldn't create boards without admin access.
Yeah. But I mean, the long shot.
Yeah.
Then someone starts 8chan, where you can add child porn. And then
and anonymous,
yeah. And you can post anonymous. You don't have to actually have a username and this sort of stuff. That's a splinter group. And there's a few other splinter groups that you've heard about, like when they had the Christchurch shooting, New Zealand has its own spin-off one, which was called like Kiwi Farmers or like something along those sorts of lines. That was like another splinter website. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting look, and a lot of debate about free speech. And what does that actually mean? Yeah, a lot of interesting things brought up, and just kind of riveting story. I think obviously the personal characters like add to it a lot, and then kind of culminating in the events of earlier this year, being there at the Capitol riots and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, quite an interesting documentary. You don't think there's been, I think there's a little bit of criticism saying it would incite people to get into reading QAnon stuff. But I think it's kind of like fallen away.
I mean, it's hard for me to say because obviously I already have my thoughts and stuff. So I don't know how someone coming into this like without knowing anything would feel. But like for me watching it, I just feel like all the Q supporters sound absolutely crazy. And like, maybe we should have said, but in case people are like completely unaware of what this is, like QAnon is literally like someone starts posting stuff on a board and signing off as Q, and they start leaving like really like sort of cryptic messages, and they get a few like random predictions right amongst a bunch of predictions that were wrong, but it doesn't matter. You just forget those. You only focus on the times they predicted things that actually come true. So then everyone presumes a bunch of people start believing it's like some secret insider next to Trump possibly, blah, 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 blah. So everyone starts supporting, like becoming a believer in Q, being this like secret organization. Q like starts leaving all these messages.
People start breaking them down like we break down pop culture stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it starts a whole then splinter group of like YouTubers and content creators who would like wait for Q to drop these messages, and then they would do, videos after hours and hours of content discussing them and talking about them, what they are. And Q's content was obviously, it's not like, it's alt-right, I guess is the easiest way to put it. Yeah, it's like, it's alt-right leaning, it's Trump supportive, it's, like this sort of stuff. It's not full like white supremacist sort of stuff, but some of the messages at time would lean into that without fully.
Well, there is a large section of the community that believes that there is a massive undercover network of famous people who traffic children and eat babies. So,
which that is the in case people there was the most famous part where Trump's did that interview last year before the election and straight up got asked in it, which they show in the documentary. But I remember that when it happened last year, everyone was like, "What the fuck is wrong with him?" Because the interviewer like straight up asks Trump to disavow Q or any of this sort of stuff, and he just goes, "Well, I heard they don't like child rapists or whatever, and I support that." It's like, oh my god. Yeah, they literally believe like all these people, all these big name celebrities, Hillary Clinton and whatever, they're all part of a secret underground group eating babies. And Pizzagate, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, that's covered in this. Like if you've heard of Pizzagate but never knew what it actually was, that's covered in this. That is part of everything's connected. That's the funniest thing I think about watching.
That was the craziest thing. Everything is connected.
Like literally all of the crazy conspiracy type things that you've possibly ever heard of, and you've never really looked up or what they mean, like from Pizzagate through to Gamergate through to like
everything except the Loch Ness monster.
Well, who knows? That could also be connected.
Maybe they edited that out.
Possibly.
They cut it down for time.
But it's really funny because I actually started listening to. Oh, it's on my phone here. there was that podcast that came out a couple of weeks ago. It's called Rewriting Ripley, and that got a big shitstorm focus on it because it was it's these two people, and I was trying to do the podcast anonymously, and in the first episode they cover how a lot of these alt-right groups, and theirs is focused on pop culture, but they start connecting how Comicsgate's connected to Gamergate, connected to 4chan, like they're doing their own like sort of connection thing, and then they're calling out people like the Quartering and all these sort of people. So of course, like then the Quartering and all these people dox them and release their real details online and all this sort of shit. But I thought it was interesting that this series actually started airing roughly around the same time that Rewriting Ripley podcast started. So everyone's like, fuck this, we've had enough. We're gonna start showing people that all of this stuff is connected. Like it's all part of like one big alt-right fuckfest or whatever it is.
Yeah. All okay. So, how do you feel about the final conclusion of the series? Do you think he's accurate or
without spoiling it, because I think people should watch it, and it's
yeah,
of course. I would say, but it's one of those things where you're basing your theory solely on what's given to you in the documentary, and given I have no alternative choice, sure,
what to believe.
It makes sense. It would make sense, is what I would say. I would say I'm not going to die on this hill because I haven't done my own evidence, so I'm not going to whatever. But everything that's given to you in this documentary as to who Q could be is, I think it adds up. It seems, but at the same time, it's like too obvious that maybe it's just too easy. But sometimes the easy choice is.
Sometimes the most obvious answer is the correct answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Based on the information that we have.
And that final interview, the smile and the laugh and like
yeah. What a series. All right. So you can find that on Binge at the moment, or I guess Foxtel.
Sure, it's on Foxtel.
I don't know where
yeah,
Foxtel.
whatever.
I'm sure it's on
is.
Foxtel as well. Yeah. So the Invincible, the animated series, is now available on Amazon Prime. The first 4 episodes have dropped pretty closely following the comic books. I've watched all 4 episodes. I believe you have as well, Dylan.
Yep.
I'm really enjoying it so far. I think I'm really grateful they decided to do animation. I don't think it would have worked in live action.
Well, they're doing both, so.
Well, they say that, but it could be a long time away. Very true to the comics from what I can remember. I can't remember where I dropped off, but I read at least this portion of the comics. Very much living up to the comics in terms of violence and other stuff. I think they nailed like a lot of the voice acting, casting choices. Really great across the board. Well animated. I feel like sometimes the pacing is a bit off. Like some episodes feel like they go a bit too long, or like kind of there's kind of a bit of a lull sometimes during the episodes, which you feel like it could be a bit tighter or a bit more interesting at certain points. But
I think it's just really weird to have a nearly 15-minute animated show. Like you usually don't have animated shows that are this long. Like you don't have an animated show that's weekly that's treated like a live action show where it's getting the same runtime. We're used to 24-minute animated series. So that's another thing that I just think feels weird.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's not used to watching the animation for that long, but it's really pretty good. Dylan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think there's some like a lot of subtle choices that I think in retrospect are quite funny. So I don't think it's a spoiler to say that this show does get quite violent. That's sort of like, this is a very violent show. I'm not going to spoil. Like if you haven't watched this yet, you should watch it. It's really good. It's really great. It's not like a comedy parody on like it's not making fun of superhero shows and movies or whatever, but it is at the same time sort of taking a lot of stereotypes from Marvel, DC, what have you.
There are definitely stand-ins.
Yeah, there's stand-ins, but they're not done for they're not done to like.
No,
it's not a comedy. This isn't really there's some funny parts, of course, but the show's not actually a comedy. It is a serious show. But yeah, there's definitely, especially in the first episode, you're like, okay, that's Batman, that's Wonder Woman, that's
yeah.
So that's
Flash Manhunter, that's Flash.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the first episode though, it's like really cool how, especially if someone sets you up, like I am now, to anyone who hasn't watched this, and they go, this show's fucked up, like it's super violent, you got to watch this. And if you watch that first episode, just the way they purposely sort of exclude and make it feel like you're just watching like the Justice League animated series for the most part, you know, like there's no blood, like there's parts where characters get punched and there's actually no blood. However, when you get to episode 2, 3, 4, those same sort of punches are now leaving blood. Like it was like the violence filter was sort of turned off, and that's all done on purpose to lead you to the finale of the first episode, of course. And I'm not going to spoil it, but you know, that's the big shocking event that leads you to go, what the fuck is this show actually about, and what's going to happen in the future episodes.
I think it is like one of the best like pilot cliffhangers, you know, or like, you know, it definitely ends on a note that makes people want to keep watching. You know, especially if you hadn't read the comics or knew what was coming. Yeah,
I don't know how you could reach the end of that episode and not be like, what the fuck? Like, and obviously, if you've read the comics, you've read the comics. But if you haven't read the comics, it's like, animated or not animated, you reach the end of that first episode, you're just going to be like, what the fuck? Like, where's the next episode? What the hell's actually happening in this show? This is absolutely crazy. I think the other standout thing two standout things I have is I really enjoy the animation style. It's definitely going for that, I guess, to look like a Justice League animated show or whatever. Like, it's going for that that style and purpose, and it does a really good job at it. And then also the voice cast is obviously the most important thing. It's a huge, big voice cast with a lot of prominent big names, a lot of big names in small roles. When Seth Rogen showed up, I was like, this is perfect casting for that character in like one episode.
Well, he's executive producing, so that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think he was trying to make it into a live action thing years ago, I think around the time he was trying to do like The Boys and whatever else, you know, like trying to do all these other things. So, but yeah, so the voice acting is really, really great. Stephen Yeun? Was it?
Yeah, Stephen Yeun.
Yeah. He's fantastic as Mark, the main character. J.K. Simmons is as fantastic as his dad. What's the wife's name? I can't remember, from Sandra Oh. Yep, fucking going off the top of my head here. See, I haven't watched either of the shows she's most famous for. Was she most famous for like Grey's Anatomy and then Killing
Grey's
Eve or whatever?
Anatomy,
and then Killing Eve? Yeah, I haven't watched either. So so your core cast is great, and then you have
but you've watched Sideways, right?
Sideways?
Isn't that the one with Paul Giamatti?
Is that the wine one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched that. Is she in that?
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I can't remember. And then you got the surrounding cast is big as well. What's the fuck from Community plays one of the other superheroes in this.
Jacobs.
And no, is it Jake? Okay. And then Zazie Beetz, is that
Zazie Beetz?
Yeah. He plays another. Basically plays his love interest in this. So you've got a big core cast, and I think they're all fantastic. J.K. Simmons is probably my favorite so far, though. I think he's like amazing. He's just perfect for that character, I think. And there's times where his dad.
Shit. Sorry, I was just looking at the cast list. You know the guy at the start of the first episode who goes on the monologue about being really proud?
Yeah, the dad.
His stepson.
Yeah, the security guy.
That's John Hamm.
Yeah, makes sense. Have you looked up the cast of basically the Justice League in this? They're all Walking Dead people, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Because of course, in case you don't know, this is based on a comic from Robert Kirkman, the writer, creator of the Walking Dead comics.
Walking Dead.
But no, I'm really, really enjoying it. We're halfway already, though. So that's the thing. They dropped those first few episodes at once. Now they're doing week by week, and there's apparently only 8 episodes in season. So I'm like, fuck, it'll be over before you even know it.
Crazy. So that's a great thing to watch on Amazon Prime at the moment. If you got Amazon Prime, over on Disney Plus, the first episode first two episodes of The Mighty Ducks Game Changers are out, following a young ragtag group of kids that just love hockey, but are not very good. So they can't play for the
Mighty Ducks storyline.
Yeah, but in this version, it's 20 something plus years later. The Mighty Ducks are like the championship team. They're the gold standard of hockey for the state. It's very much a story about the over professionalism of like children's sport. Like pretty much the kid is told, if you're not good at hockey now, there's no point playing hockey anymore. And that pretty much, is the impetus for them starting this new team called the Don't Bothers. So it's odd that the show is called The Mighty Ducks, seeing as there are no ducks in the show. But of course, they're setting up this team. They need to get 6 players. They need to have a coach. And they need to have a home rink. So they're getting a rink at this time of year super difficult. Nobody wants to rent one out to this hockey team. So they ring to Lauren Graham's character, who's the mother of the main kid, stumbles across the Ice Palace, owned by Gordon Bombay. But this version of Gordon Bombay hates hockey and is angry at life and just a bitter old man, kind of. But in that kind of fun way. Like, it feels like a little bit of aggression to him in the first film. But maybe not as high and mighty, I guess. He's just kind of over hockey and, that kind of thing. But it seems like he's getting warmed up by these kids, so... only 2 episodes in at the moment, but yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. It is definitely aimed at a younger audience, but I feel like there is a little bit there for people with a bit of nostalgia and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, The Mighty Ducks are kid movies, so it's not going to be...
Yeah, it's aimed at the current audience of the original films, but people who do love The Mighty Ducks will find something in there. It's cool to see Coach Bombay back, even though if he is bitter and living on uneaten children's birthday party cake. Yeah, it's a good time. So you checked out the documentary Transhood.
Right. Yes. So this came out last year. It was, it popped up on Binge the other day when I opened it on Trans Awareness Day. I think that's official. Is it? Can't remember. Yes. I was like, make sure I'm not talking out my ass here, but it's pretty good. It follows. Let me bring up the IMDb quickly so I don't remember how many. Right. So
4 kids.
Official, but I'll just read the thing since I've got it open now. Official description says, filmed over 5 years in Kansas City, this documentary follows 4 kids beginning at ages 4, 7, 12, and 15 as they redefine coming of age. These kids and their families reveal intimate realities of how gender is reshaping the family next door and a never seen before told chronicling of growing up transgender in the heartland. So the film follows them for several years because I think the oldest ends up being, by the time the film ends, that she's like 17, 18. So I guess that'd be like maybe a 2-3 year period or something like that. Something along those lines. But it's really interesting. I think without spoiling it, there's certainly some of the families are just more interesting than others for certain reasons I can't really say without spoiling. Like one in particular has like you think the mother of this child is like treating their child in a certain way, and then things just go in a completely different direction like halfway through, and it's just like sort of major whiplash. I'm like, how the fuck did we end up from A to B here? But what are we going to do there? There's definitely lots of I don't know, like it's I guess the most interesting thing I got out of it, and I feel like it's the most interesting thing most people would get out of it, is in a world where, especially as it seems in America, where, well, I mean, worldwide, like worldwide, getting, like, let's say you have a child and you're like, I think my child is trans, or like showing potential signs that they could be trans or something. Like getting help or getting like advice on how to go forward from that point. And I don't mean in like a negative way. I don't mean like in a let's stop this quickly type thing. I just mean in like how to help or like find the signs, find the appropriate signs, or like pick between what could actually be straight up just childlike wonderment in things, because the documentary also does sort of explore the idea of people potentially overswinging. It's like a young child suddenly wants to put on a dress. Does that make them trans? You know what I mean? Like and it's like, can you as a parent then overreact and be like, I have a trans child now because what I thought was a boy wanted to put on a dress? Or was that simply a very young child who doesn't understand that clothes are gendered, putting on and playing dress up in the long clothes, and does that actually mean something, or does that not actually mean something? So I feel like there's a lot of interesting nuance to it. The documentary doesn't really end with any big realities or messages to send home or whatever. It certainly does cover, as two of the family show in particular, the medical costs involved in young trans children in America who, like they don't have, obviously it's well talked about how medical coverage in America is kind of up the wazoo, but when it comes to like being, one of them's this trans boy who is like wanting to get I can't remember the official name, but it's like some implant that would stop like as you're coming into your teens to like stop your hormones or whatever, like coming through. So it's like sort of to help that process or whatever. So it's like, and they're like, oh, this costs $5,000. It's like, fucking Jesus. Like, it's like a single parent as well. It's just, it's a very intimate look. And I think that's the other good thing about the documentary. There's barely any straight up like sitting chair interviews. And there's certainly a lot of times where the camera happens to be in the room for a very intimate, real world look at what these families are going through. And you, even one of them I felt bad about watching. It was one of those ones where you're like watching, you're like, I don't think we should be here. Like, I don't think I should be watching this conversation, but I am. So that's also, I guess, what makes the documentary an interesting watch. So yeah, it's on Binge if you want to check it out. Came out last year, HBO documentary. So I would recommend.
Okay, cool. So I checked out the new HBO Max series that came out on Stan, Made for Love, starring Krista Milotti and Billy Magnuson and Ray Romano. Follows a woman who's been in a marriage to this tech billionaire for several years, forced to live inside this cube world that's like really nice, holograms and shit, but kind of cut off from everybody else inside the real world. And she finally calls it kind of escapes, but she escapes after her husband implants a chip into her brain that lets her see what she sees, and keeps track of her emotional data and that kind of stuff. A really it's an interesting show. It's like kind of dark, and very funny. Feels kind of, I guess, I've read it feels like Black Mirror to a certain degree. It's kind of like this weird relationship where Billy Magnuson, he's like really in love with her, but he just can't show it like a normal person. It's very creepy. Pretty much trying to get this technology that will make them have one united brain without no secrets, which Krista Melotti's character just does not want at all, and is very much, doesn't want this life anymore. So she runs away to her father, who she hasn't seen in 10 years, and who is now living with a I forget the term that he uses, but it's pretty much a sex doll as his life partner. To add an interesting wrinkle. So there's currently 3 episodes available now on Stan.
Was that all at once? I thought it only started like on the first of this month.
It did. They dropped 3 episodes at once.
Okay.
They drop 3 episodes this coming week, and the final 2 episodes will come out the week after, according to Wikipedia.
But that's how it's airing in America as well, right? Because that
I believe so. That's how it's dropping on HBO Max.
weird. Okay.
It is an odd release structure, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Kristen Milotti is great. Billy Magnuson is, he's an interesting dude. In this, Ray Romano, very good. And it's got one of my favorite trailers of the year so far. So, with Ray Romano reciting "Crazy in Love" by Beyonce, so over the top of it. You should check that trailer out if you haven't seen it.
I've not watched the trailer. I've read the description and said I want to watch this, so I can't left it at that. But reading the description solely, I was like, this sounds like a dark comedy, and I think that's kind of what it sounds like. So,
yeah, definitely.
Black Mirror is basically a dark comedy at times, like a really fucked up dark comedy, but
yeah. So Dylan, you got around to finishing the Apple TV Plus series Mythic Quest.
Yeah, how good! Really enjoyed it. Did you see they announced today that there's an special episode coming out in a couple of weeks? What good timing for me to finally caught
good
up.
Timing.
Yeah. Written by Ashley Birch. There you go. Shout outs. So yeah, in case you missed the memo on what this is about, quickly, Mythic Quest was the one where it's basically a sitcom inside of a game development, a game studio, and it doesn't. I was going to say it's kind of like The Office, but it doesn't have all the fake mockumentary.
It's not a documentary.
It's not a fake. Yeah, it's not a mockumentary. It's just a sitcom inside of a game dev studio. The cast of characters are absolutely nonsensical. They're all over the top. Most of them don't actually make any sense as real human beings. Like, if you was to think about any of these characters as being real people in the real world, you would go, there's no way that most of these characters, like, who's the main guy?
Ian Grimm.
Yeah.
Played by Rob McElhenry.
Yeah. So he is off his face, to put it bluntly, in this show. He's off his face, and then so is basically nearly every other character. David Hornsby's off it. Danny Pudi's off it in this movie. Murray Graham, who plays the person writing of the game story, who doesn't actually play the game, he's off his fucking face in this. Like, Craig Mazin, for whatever reason, is in this playing a fucking character, and I'm like, when that happened, I was like, okay, sure. Like, I didn't know.
For context.
Yeah, Craig Mazin is the writer of most famous
Chernobyl.
now for Chernobyl, but previously he did do a lot of comedies. I'm like, sure. Yeah, he plays the other dude who comes in and takes over.
The second tester.
Second tester, yeah. And the second he showed up, I was like, that looks like, and I stopped straight away to Google it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Craig Mason's like, I've just won all these Emmys. They're like, do you want to come play a game tester in our Apple TV Plus comedy series? Yeah, sure. No, sounds great. I'll come do that. Yeah, it's just really, really funny. But also at the same time, I guess the thing that makes the show work is, although the episodes start with just these sort of, and of course I watched the pilot when we did our Apple TV Plus thing or whatever, and I was like, I'll get back to it eventually, and it just took me ages, but I got there eventually. By the end of the season, which there's only 9 episodes, and then 10 if you want to count the one they released last year, their quarantine episode, which I'll put an asterisk in that, come back to that, because that is fucking something special. By the end of the show, you do start getting a little bit more attached to the characters. Like, they definitely take your time. They take their time in making them more than just the comedy bits, I guess, and like making them into more fully formed characters that you sort of start getting attached to, and they start putting some like actual drama or like things to make you care about them behind the scenes. But I would say like the first half of this show is very much like focused on the comedy and just like sort of introducing everyone and like having them sort of be these loud, ridiculous characters within a game studio who are
it definitely plays out like the first season of a sitcom. At the start they've got to try and get used as people watching, so they've got to try and be as funny and loud as possible, and then like as the season progresses, the character stuff kind of shines through. Which,
coming back to that quarantine episode, which I loved how they filmed this. It's just straight up a Zoom call while they're all in lockdown during COVID and stuff like that. But honestly, I think that quarantine episode may be one of the best. If I'd watched it last year, I think I may have like put it in my, like, if I was picking top best like TV episodes of last year, I reckon I would have voted for Quarantine, because not only is it super funny, but it's also just the way it's like edited, and they do all these really cool things with it being like a fake Zoom call. But I think it also, by the end of it, I don't really want to spoil it because I think people should watch it. But by the end of it, they do this storyline where one character is really suffering from being in lockdown for so long. Like they're like going super ham on work. They're like focusing on work to keep themselves distracted or whatever. And then the second they get told like, look, we're done. You just need to stop like programming. You need to take a chill break. They kind of begin breaking down and being like, I'm alone in this fucking apartment. I've been all alone for months and months and months. And that leads to a really great character moment between that one and one of the characters. A character you wouldn't expect to have a great character moment, but lo and behold, you get there. And I think after that great payoff, and I love how they don't cut away from that moment too early. Like that scene like hangs for probably like 30 seconds with these two characters just sort of sharing an intimate moment, which was really nice. But then like after that, it also ends with sort of like one of the best things I've seen in some time, where they do a Zoom call where they've got all of the cast in there, like how many people there is, like 16 people or something ridiculous on the Zoom squares or whatever. And they do one of those things where they time it perfectly. So someone like knocks something down, and then like, you know, like people do them in real life where you like knock a marble down, it knocks down it goes along these lines or whatever. They perfectly time it on this Zoom call, so it knocks down all these things. And to me, I'm like, it looks like they've done this legit. I mean, I'm sure they didn't because they could like retake stuff and they can edit around it or whatever, but fuck, it looked good. And I was like, this is just like, this is a fantastic, I guess if that's the proper season finale, I don't know what counts as the season finale for that show, but it was great.
Yeah, really good show. What'd you think of the other standalone episode?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that was great too. Hey, that was episode 4 or 5 or whatever it was. It's basically a bottle episode, I guess. Let me double check which one it is. It is episode 5. Yes, A Quiet Dark Place, which has Tristan Milotti.
Quiet Dark Death.
Sorry?
Death.
So Christian Milotti, who was just talking about, of course, and then Jake Johnson, who played this couple in this sort of bottle episode. But when the episode starts and it's just the two of them, like she's entering this video game store, she's looking to buy a game, and then she's like, "Oh, all games suck," and this sort of thing, and then these two begin flirting, and it sort of cuts ahead, and you're like, you feel like you're watching a completely like. I actually paused for a second. I paused and went, has my Apple, because it's done this to me previously, where Apple TV, I finished watching one episode of a show and thought it would autoplay the next episode. And it's autoplayed a completely different episode of a different show that I was watching from my queue or something. And I'm like, why the fuck have you done that? So I paused for a second because I was like, has it like skipped to it? Has it gone to a show I don't know about? Like, why the fuck is Jake Johnson in this show all of a sudden? But no, I was like, okay, well, this is apparently the same show, so I'll just keep watching. But that episode's really, really good. And I guess given that episode really is a bottle episode, like it has nothing to do with anything really in the long term things, I guess. It makes me wonder if maybe that's just a thing. They'll maybe do one of those per season. I don't know. You definitely couldn't do a love story one like that again, but I thought it was really, really good.
Definitely awesome. And then I just want to quickly touch on Superstore. I've talked about it. Simon talked about it. The show set in like a big American box store. Finished its final season. Season in which they probably had to change a lot because of coronavirus. It's being set in like a store like that,
Did they film it during Corona? Like, did they film it last year?
They filmed it. Yeah. So all the characters are acting like it's actually.
So they got masks
like some
on
shows
and
are like
stuff?
pretending it's not a thing.
Yeah.
But this one is definitely playing into it, doing the jokes and that kind of thing. I feel like, very nailing a sitcom ending is hard, and I feel like they did a pretty good job. Very satisfying, America Ferrera, who quit the show, came back for the last couple episodes and that kind of thing. So, I thought it was quite good. So, definitely, Superstore. It's a big hit on Netflix. The last season is over on binge at the moment. So, check that out. So let's move into the mandatory Netflix segment of the show. I've only got one item on there, but I think you'll be wanting to talk about this for a little while. Bad Trip.
I don't think I'll talk about it for that too long. There's not too much context or whatever that I can say here without spoiling all the things in the movie. But so guys, this is Eric Andre movie, and I feel like if you know who Eric Andre is, you should know if you'll like this movie or not. Because basically, if you've ever watched the Eric Andre show and you've hated it, or you've seen a clip from his show and you hated it, then you're not going to like this movie. If you've watched Jackass and you hate it, you're not going to like this show. This is basically Jackass combined with Eric Andre show, which makes sense given the producers of this are people who work on Jackass and, like Jeff Tremaine and like that sort of group, the core Jackass producer director group are involved in this. But it's still got a lot of the Eric Andre humor. So this is kind of the easiest movie to compare this to is the Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa, where it's a bunch of pranks, stunts, whatever you want to call them. They're filmed with a very flimsy script so they can have a running storyline throughout the movie, which is exactly what they did with Bad Grandpa of Johnny Knoxville and stuff. So, and the setup for this movie is Eric Andre's character. It is so flimsy when you actually start saying it out loud. He's at work one day early in the movie. Girl comes in. He's like, oh my God, I was in love with her from high school. She's really nice to him. She's like, oh, I'm doing this art gallery. Here's my card if you're ever in New York and you want to come visit. And he's like, man, she basically just proposed to me. I definitely need to travel all the way down to New York this week because she's totally got the hots for me and I definitely going to win this girl over. So then he gets his friend who's played by Lil Ray Howery in this movie, and they borrow his sister's car and she's in jail. And the sister's played by Tiffany Haddish in this movie. And they take the car and they begin their road trip. Meanwhile, of course, Tiffany Haddish's character breaks out of prison, which is a hilarious scene to see because she's like, by the way, she's fantastic in this movie. Like, if you haven't seen her in other things, like she's in like Girls Trip and a bunch of other stuff. She like the way she's like dressed up as like a, trying to be this hard criminal like character in this, and the scene where they have her break out of prison, she's like, it's this bus stop right outside of the prison or whatever, and they just have her like burst out of the fucking ground, and all these people at the bus stop just begin screaming and shit, and she's like, I'll fucking kill you if you say anything and stuff like this. Like, this shit's great, love it. So yeah, I mean that's basically the setup. It's a road trip movie which works perfectly for a movie where you're like, I just want I want a narrative reason to have these characters pull over and they'll do different pranks and whatever stunts at different locations. One of my favorites, I don't want to spoil them all, but one of my favorites is they're like, oh, we're going to pull over and we'll stop at this bar overnight or whatever. And it's a real like Midwestern or whatever you want to call it sort of town where they walk in and of course everyone there's doing it's like the country music's on and whatever, and then Lil Ray Howery's character's like, man, we're the only black people in here, and Eric Andre's like, no, it's fine, I'm fine. And I want to know how long they were there in real life, because it's obviously it's like cut a lot of times to show them throughout the night, but they're just like talking to these people, they're just talking to people at the bar, they're drinking, getting it all, having a few drinks, and this culminates in Eric Andre climbing on top of the top of the bar section. You see this in the trailer, and he like goes to give a toast or whatever, and he completely falls off the side and like smashes into this fucking table, and everyone in the bar starts like flipping out and screaming, thinking he's died and all this sort of shit. So I don't know, like I very much enjoy this. Obviously, I'm a big I love Jackass and stuff growing up, so I do really like this type of humor. I know some people don't like this type of humor. They don't, that you get the. I don't know if you're one of those. You can say in a second, but I definitely know that some people don't like watching this stuff because they get that like that feeling watching other people's like embarrassment. You know what I mean? Like it just
Yes, that is something I do not enjoy.
So like for example, this movie literally starts with Eric Andre working at he's working at a job where he's like supposed to be detailing cars or whatever, and he's like, this dude comes in, he's like, oh hey man, like he's like, hey man, sit down, I'm just gonna vacuum out your car here, no problem. He like puts the end of the vacuum in the car. He's like, yeah, just press go. He presses go. The next second he like sucks his entire like worker's uniform off until he's like standing there naked, and the customer's just like freaking out. He's like, what? And then Eric Andre's like, what'd you do that to me for? So it's funny. If you're into this type of humor, it's definitely funny. It's got, if you're like afraid of the gross out humor, I would say there is like one or two gross out type humor things in this, but for the most part it's more stuff. And the other thing I thought while watching this is because it's funny. I was thinking while watching this, we don't get movies or things like this. And I wonder if Jackass would even work this day, which is going to be an interesting conversation because apparently they're filming Jackass 4, at the moment, or they were filming it and then stopped because of COVID or something like that. So, I just wonder if stuff like this works when you've had the rise of sort of like that YouTuber prank like all those YouTuber prank channels. But I think the biggest difference to me, because I don't watch those channels, and I was trying to think like why I don't like them. And I think it's because a lot of those YouTube channels, the pranks are full on, they don't actually take anything themselves. Like a lot of the times the butt of the joke is the people, like the random people in the public. Like they're sort of just pissing off people. They're not really like doing it themselves. Whereas this and like Jackass and those spin-off sort of shows, for the most part, I would say 90% of the time, a lot of it was put on they're doing embarrassing things. Like the blunt of the joke, whatever it is themselves, not like annoying other people. Like I'm sure there's a level of annoyance, but I feel like a lot of those YouTube channels, it's just like they're mean spirited, if that makes sense for anyone who's like checked them out. So I don't know.
Okay, it's a bad trip.
It's huge on Netflix apparently. Like it was number one everywhere after the first day or so I saw. So
yeah. All right, that brings us to the end of this What's in Our Watch History section. Moving to a little bit of film news. Kicking things off with the DC universe, and apparently Snyder Cut has killed plans for New Gods film. It was reported that I had the story right up. The Hollywood Reporter reported that New Gods and the Aquaman spin-off, The Trench, have both been cancelled by Warner Brothers. Apparently, they said, as part of our DC slate, some legacy titles, including New Gods and The Trench, will not be moving forward. We thank our partners, Ava DuVernay, Tom King, James Wan, Peter Safran, for their time and collaboration during this process, and look forward to the continued partnership with them on other DC stories. Apparently, the reasoning behind the New Gods not being moved forward is Darkseid appearing in Zack Snyder's Justice League and them not wanting to use him again so soon, which seems baffling.
It seems backwards. I thought they would want to use him again soon because people were like, I know who that character is now. Like I may recognize him. I liked him in that movie, and then that would help potentially sell a New Gods movie. Because I think the problem with the New Gods movie was that most people, that movie is going to be fucking weird. And it's going to be not what people want out of their typical comic book movies. And I always thought the New Gods movie, I was really looking forward to that. Tom King, Ava DuVernay, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. Yep. But it definitely was going to be a hard sell, I always thought, like for the core, like the people who don't read comics but just watch like the Marvel movies. You know what I mean? Like that's definitely fitting into one of the weirder boxes of properties and things like that. Like it's not superheroes.
It's very much a sci-fi world. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be Guardians of the Galaxy, but not as funny.
Yes.
Or what I suspect the Eternals is going to be later this year.
It would be
another
weird.
Jack Kirby creation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anything like Jack Kirby related, I guess, to a degree. But the at least with the Eternals, people see Marvel has that thing where they could literally do whatever they want now. People will check it out because they've earned that. Whereas DC has to work to get people to watch these movies still. So they weren't going to have that free reign for something like a New Gods. But yeah, I don't understand how Zack Snyder's Justice League and the little tiny appearance in like in a 4-hour movie. He's probably Darkseid's probably in that for what, like 15 minutes tops, maybe total 10 minutes tops, maybe
10 minutes.
Yeah,
he gets his ass beat at the start, and then shows up towards the end.
Yeah, so I just don't think like that should have any bearing on their movies. But yeah,
especially when you consider they did what Suicide Squad was, I'd say 2016, something like that. And then last year we had Joker.
Yeah.
Quite soon after.
And do you have that Batman story from today?
No, was there a Batman story?
Yeah, so there was a Batman story where apparently they've now confirmed that the Batman, it takes place on Earth 2.
Oh yeah, I've read that somewhere.
So I was like, in a
Whatever.
world where they're willing to be like, oh, this one's set on Earth too, and like Joker isn't canon to our main universe, and like that's set on a different Earth as well. It's like, why do you need to cancel anything? Like you're putting a little bit of faith out there, going, oh, we trust our viewers can understand that Joker isn't connected, or like this Batman movie isn't actually connected to the same universe as the Ben Affleck franchise or whatever, you know. But then they're like, oh, we can't do a new Gods movie because people just saw that character. What?
No, it doesn't make any sense. And from the sound of it, in Ava DuVernay's tweet about the story, she lists, I'm upset the saga of Barda, Scott, Granny, Highfather, and the Furies ends this way. No mention of they mentioned Darkseid as in Darkseid is like the hashtag at the end, but it seems like it was definitely going to be focused on other characters, not just Darkseid. So, yeah, I think, missed opportunity. This could have been a cool introduction to these characters.
I love
Tom King. He just does.
I love that
his
team up.
run on Mr. Miracle is amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty disappointed. Then, of course, like I said, they cancelled The Trench, which was going to be a film based on the sea monsters you see in Aquaman. It's going to be like a horror movie, but with sea monsters.
Yeah,
I
didn't really care for this one. So.
I didn't really care for it, but it also doesn't make sense when they said, sources say that the upcoming Aquaman sequel was considered enough. Aquaman, pretty big hit. Why wouldn't you want a spin-off film if you're making films anyway? I don't know.
I don't know what they're doing over there. Who knows? Who knows?
I don't know. They're putting all their eggs. I think they're desperately hoping that Black Adam is going to be a big success.
Well, it will be because it has The Rock in it. So, but like, where do you go from that?
Will be good.
where do you go from that? Like, it makes a bunch of money because Dwayne The Rock Johnson's in it, and then
It's that and the Flash, and I guess Batman. That's the three they're focusing on.
And even that Flash thing I find so weird, where they're like, look, we're not really continuing the Snyder universe, but also Andy I can't say his last name.
Machete,
is that it?
I want to say.
Yeah. Like he confirmed that he was recasting what's the fuck as
Barry does. It won't be Billy Crudup.
No, but he recast he's the love interest, like bringing her back or whatever.
Oh, bringing her back.
Yeah.
Kirstie Clemens.
Whatever her name.
I want
is.
to say.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. There's just lots of weird. I just don't know what they're doing there. I don't see any
Planning.
And it's not like I need a big connected universe. I'm fine with a bunch of movies that aren't connected if that's what you want to do. I just want good movies, but I feel like they're just trying so hard. Like, I feel like maybe it feels like two people fighting. Like, one half wants to do a bunch of non-connected things. The other half wants to do a bunch of connected things, and they just keep, bashing up against one another. It's like for every good movie, there's 2 or 3 shit ones, Like, I wasn't a big fan of Joker, but I'd happily have more standalone movies because at least it was just a story, and I can judge it on its own and watch it on its own merits and review it on its own merits kind of thing. But at the same time, I really liked Birds of Prey, and that turned me around on Harley Quinn and Margot Robbie in this franchise, and that's really got me super fucking excited for the Suicide Squad trailer.
You watched that Suicide Squad trailer?
I watched it again today. I'm legit very excited for that movie.
Hand.
Hans. Yeah, I'm fucking I'm pretty all into that movie. But let me say this, just for people, look, I can get excited about shit, and then if I'm let down, it's fine. I can move on with my life. But I really liked Birds of Prey. I really like Margot Robbie now. I'm really down about Harley Quinn. I really like James Gunn. I really like the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't like second one so much, but I like all of James Gunn's other movies, So, I know it's R-rated, and I don't mean oh, fuck yeah, violence. I just mean it's R-rated. James Gunn got to do the movie he wants to do. John Cena looks insane in it.
Yeah.
I'm hand. Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
I can't not be excited. That's King Shark. I can't not be excited about this movie.
And they got freaking Starro as the villain.
Yeah, it's literally James Gunn. I'm pretty sure James Gunn walked into DC and said, "I want to do it. So you want me to do Suicide Squad?" And they're like, "Yep." He's like, "Can I pick which villains I can use?" They're like, "Yep, go for gold." And he literally brought in a list, and then some DC executive looked at it and went, "So you want to use literally all of the worst characters that we own?" all of the weirdest and worst characters you could possibly think of. And James Gunn's like, yep.
Cool.
Can I have Polka Dot Man?
What's listening?
Fucking, come on. Can I have Starro
Incredible.
as the main villain? And DC Warner Brothers is actually like, you can't have a giant starfish as a villain. He's like, nah, that's the only way I'm doing it.
Yeah, I can. Watch it.
Watch it.
Incredible. Yeah. So, some positive things coming from DC in the near future. All right. So big news on the Netflix front. Netflix has signed a massive deal with Rian Johnson, Daniel Craig, and Ram Bergman to acquire the rights to Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3. Deadline broke the news that Knives Out 2 is heading to Netflix via an eye-popping $400 million deal. Variety says it might even be closer to $450 million. So Netflix has the rights to both Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3. Both films will be contractually required to have a budget matching the first film of $40 million. But apparently, Daniel Craig, Rian Johnson, and Ram Bergman are going to walk away with $100 million each, which is mental. For a film that, much loved, I don't know if it did that well in the box office.
I think it did from retrospect. I actually think it was one of those ones that word of mouth from memory. Like the
Yes.
second week, third week were a lot stronger than the first week. Although the first week's the only one that people ever talk about. Like opening weekend, opening week box office wasn't great, and then 2 and 3 picked up.
$311 million.
Which is pretty good for a brand new franchise like that.
For a return on $40 million, that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the funny thing. Like $40 million is fuck all. So,
especially considering that cast.
Daniel Craig mustn't cost as much as you would assume.
Not for that first one. He is now.
Yeah.
So, what if you keen on seeing more Knives Out?
Oh yeah,
I'm screen.
Let's break this apart into two things here. Am I keen on more Knives Out? Fuck yeah. I think we've discussed this previously at one point, but yeah, fuck yeah, all about more Knives Out. When I was all about another sequel as soon as I watched the first one, so cool. Give me more. As for the Netflix thing, I don't mind as long as they put it in cinemas as well, which I feel like they will, but I just, until we know, we know.
I don't think it will initially.
You don't reckon?
They
did.
Maybe
They
do with some of the award stuff. They're on some indie places they release them. I don't think you'll have a massive wide release.
Just hold out hope, because that is definitely my one negative. Because as someone who would rather watch those movies in the cinema, that's my one negative. But business is business, I suppose. If it helps get them made, and I've got to watch them at home, then I've got to watch them at home. I don't know. Ryan Johnson make your money, I guess. I'm Ryan Johnson's fanboy, so
yeah, the deal was being made midway through last year. So they weren't too certain what the future of actual cinemas would be. And I don't think Knives Out is one that people would risk COVID for. But
no, I highly doubt it. And then the other thing I saw a bunch of people online being like, "Man, that movie doesn't need a sequel." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's literally
it's just the further adventures of Benoit Blanc.
Yeah, it's literally just Daniel Craig.
It's not going to be the same cast.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck? Have you people never read an Agatha Christie novel? Have you never watched one of the million versions of her movies? They literally brought Murder on the Orient Express out a couple of years ago. Now, Murder on the Nile is supposed to be coming out this year or next year, whatever the hell it was.
Maybe.
So
whenever they decide to put it out.
Yeah, it's like, come on. It's literally just the one detective character carrying on. It's not... fuck.
It's like, haven't they read Sherlock Holmes?
Yes. Even then.
It's not just...
Sherlock and Watson carryover. That's it.
That's it. Incredible.
Hard.
It isn't hard. Cool. Sticking on the Netflix train. Apparently, in the works at the moment is a spin-off of All the Boys series starring young Kitty Song Covey. Would you be on board for this?
No.
No?
No, I'm going to say no. As much as I enjoy her in that role, she's fine for that role in that movie. I've had enough of All the Boys. It's over. It's done. Bury it.
Well, Awesomeness Productions and Ace Entertainment is currently developing the half-hour romantic comedy series that would follow Kitty, Lara Jean's younger sister, as she goes on her own journey to find true love.
Yeah, she sends a letter to that fucking boy she dates in Europe from the third movie.
It would just be a text, and he breaks it off because long distance just doesn't work. A bad sign for Lara Jean and Peter, but I think that's pretty cool. She's like one of the highlights of those films, so
she was definitely the only good part of the second movie. So,
yeah, I thought that was an interesting story to bring up. All right, we got George R. R. Martin watch, and the creator of Game of Thrones.
Is that a segment?
I think so at this point. Okay, I think so at this point, because George R. R. Martin has the creator of Game of Thrones has struck a 5-year deal to develop content for HBO and HBO Max. No figures in the works, but we've got a list here of all the projects currently in development. So I'm going to list them off, and you tell me what you...
By George R. R. Martin or by HBO?
He's involved to some degree. Alright, so we got House of Dragons. Set 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones, the series focuses on House Targaryen, when the ancestors of Daenerys Targaryens ruled Westeros. Olivia Cook, Emma Darcy, Paddy Cosendine, and Matt Smith are among the cast members, and the series comes from the co-showrunners Ryan Condal and Miguel Sapochnik.
What do you want me to vote if they'll happen or not?
Interested or not interested?
Interested or not? That one, interested.
Okay. Untitled Nymeria Project. Set 1,000 years before the events of Game of Thrones, the series focuses on the warrior queen Nymeria, a revered ancestor of House Martell, who founded the Kingdom of Dawn, currently under the working title 1,000 Ships.
Interested.
Alright. The Sea Snake. This would be a potential spin-off of House of Dragon, focusing on Lord Collis Velaron, aka the Sea Snake, the Lord of Tides, and the head of House Valerian. The character who is the husband of the Princess Rhaenys Targaryen will be played by Steve Toussaint from House of Dragon, and Rome creator Bruno Heller would oversee the series.
Not interested.
Yeah, that was a stretch. Flea Bottom. Set in the notorious King's Landing slum of Flea Bottom, a maze of tight streets in the capital city where Game of Thrones characters Davos Seaworth and Gendry Baratheon were born. Story details are not clear, but it's expected that the series would focus on the criminal underworld rather than the upscale worlds that we've seen in Game of Thrones.
Not interested.
Untitled Duncan Egg Project. Based on George R. R. Martin's novellas, the series, set 90 years before the events of Game of Thrones, would follow the adventures of Hedge Knight Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg, who later became King Aegon V Targaryen.
Interested.
Okay. And then an untitled animated drama. Details are scarce on this project, including where it would take place, or when it would take place, but it would be a fully fledged animated series that would allow for more stylized and fantastical elements without worrying about budget or for live action production.
No, not interested.
Alright. So, there's some stuff there that will have you interested.
It's literally just like chuck a million Game of Thrones ideas up into the sky and let's just see what happens. They've already cancelled one, so...
They've already cancelled one, so, it could happen. I will also say there was another Game of Thrones story from the last couple of weeks. Apparently there is currently work... They're currently starting work on a Game of Thrones prequel Broadway and West End stage play around the fateful tourney at Harnell, where a lot of the characters, I can't remember.
Not interested.
The Great Tourney in Harnell was frequently alluded to in Game of Thrones, but never depicted on screen. It's the kind of tournament you'd expect out of high medieval fantasy or Renaissance fair, a grand 10-day tournament full of jousting and archery and more. But it was a pivotal turning point in Westeros history. It was here that Lyanna Stark, Ned Stark's beautiful rebellious sister, caught the eye of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, who falls in love and kidnaps her, leading her betrothed Robert Baratheon to start the war, and that would lead to him taking the Iron Throne. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that seems like an odd choice to do as a stage play, but yeah. Game of Thrones everywhere, I guess. Live action,
It's coming
animated,
back.
and in live performance, potentially.
The
They even list Australia as a place that it would come to as well, so... if that
Benioff and
appeal.
Weiss tried as hard as they could to kill it, but they couldn't kill the franchise.
No,
It's
yeah.
going to continue.
Still going strong, Nick. So we know what Kong vs. Godzilla director Adam Wingard is currently working on next. The director of Your Next, The Guest, and of course Godzilla vs. Kong has been tapped to direct Thundercats for Warner Brothers based on the 1980s animated television series. And it sounds like he's a massive fan who says, nobody on this planet knows or has thought about as much about Thundercats as I have. Interesting. I don't know. Thundercats is like a dead zone for me, but, you know, I thought it'd be interesting to bring up.
I've watched Thundercats.
I heard the recent, not the Raw one that they did, but the mid-2000s version that they did on Nickelodeon was quite good.
You've never seen the original, like at a weird time at night or early in the
No.
morning on TV or anything like that? That's when I randomly caught episodes as a child. That's about my Thundercats knowledge, to be honest. But the thing that kind of annoys me about this story is I'm like, fuck's sake, Adam. Like, come back to your roots.
No. You just don't, it's just like every one of these directors, you know, does one big film and then moves on to bigger other things.
He's
And
done
then
Death Note.
he'll just executive produce a bunch of smaller
horror
movies.
No,
yeah.
but you say that doesn't no, that's not all of them though, because James Wan, we all thought that's how it was going to go. He's like, I'm off to direct a Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to direct Aquaman. It was like, he's gone forever. And then he was like, man, that making those big budget movies are fucked, eh? I'm going to make a horror movie so I can actually enjoy myself. And that's what he's got coming out this year. So,
So one.
Yeah, well, that's out of his last three. That's like, that'd be
no, but one
two.
one example you've got.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. It'll be interesting to see the designs, I think, will be what makes or breaks this film.
If anything, you
If
can
it's
take away
cats.
from Godzilla and Kong. He can direct big
Stupid action.
spectacle CGI shit. So I guess
Yeah, as long as he's got a solid script, you know, the actual people who do the fighting can actually talk. So, you know, that adds a little bit extra. But, you know, yeah, obviously they're cat hybrids. So, you know, as long as they're not cats and don't have, I think they wear clothes, so there won't be like any poop holes or buttholes.
there will not be any poop holes.
Poop holes,
involved.
buttholes, yeah.
Poop holes.
poop holes like people wanted in the Cats remake or version. Wow, what a film. So one of the final precursors to the Oscars was over the past weekends. We got further confirmation that it looks like, you know, Chadwick Boseman's probably going to pick up Best Lead Actor in a Motion Picture. Daniel Kaluuya is probably going to pick up Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture. But on the other two major acting fronts, Viola Davis picked up Best Lead Actress in a Motion Picture for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And then Yoon Yoo Jung for Minari picked up Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture in quite a moving, you know, cute moment if you've watched the stream. And then Trial of Chicago 7 picked up Best Cast in a Motion Picture. Do you read much into these awards going forward to the Academy Awards? I mean, SAG's obviously the acting element of a large voting body.
The SAG's not so much. I don't think they've had a history of being too on the money. I don't think they share too much of a crossover pool, but I mean, you can read into any of these things. Isn't it just math? Like, I don't know. If someone wins if someone wins 4 of these other events, Best Actor, is there a chance they'll probably win the Best Actor at the Oscars? I think, yes, that you could probably say you could take that to the bank and vote that way, but no, I don't really take too much away from the SAGs, because I think there's just a bigger, what you got, like a more diverse voting pool at the SAGs than there is at the Oscars, I guess. So I wouldn't take too much, from that one.
Okay. Interesting. Obviously, the SAGs have a couple of stunt categories. So, Best Stunt Ensemble in a Motion Picture went to Wonder Woman 1984. but it was not up against the strongest competition. The other nominees were The Trial of Chicago 7, News of the World, Mulan, and Da Five Bloods. I'm surprised Tenet wasn't among those, but maybe there wasn't that many actual stunts, or I don't know.
This is the one I saw everyone on the internet getting most annoyed about, which I found quite funny. You know when people who don't actually care about awards start getting annoyed about an award that they don't really care about until it's something that wins that they don't actually care about? Look, do I think that Wonder Woman should have won? Not particularly. Is it going to keep me up at night? No.
Not really.
Just doesn't matter. Like, it's... Look, they had some good stunts. I know people are like, it's mostly CGI. Not really. I mean, the whole opening sequence is mostly practical. Like, if you watch between the mole and the Amazonian sequence, and then, like, for example, even the ridiculous sequence when they're in, where she loses control of her lasso and falls to the ground and, like, breaks those kids' necks. Like, that's a real shot of someone landing and rolling on a mat, obviously, and stuff like that. But, I mean, there's the
White House fight. That's a pretty big fight.
Yeah, a lot of that would be mostly practical. So yeah, for people who are like, oh, it's all CGI nonsense, it's not actually all CGI nonsense.
It just feels like it's mostly CGI nonsense. All right. That's it for film news. Let's get into Bad Idea of the Week. This is an interesting one. I don't know how it's going to fall on the scale. Sylvester Stallone is currently working on a Rocky prequel written by Sylvester Stallone. No word on where it's going to show up, but he said he's currently started by running a treatment of a Rocky prequel for a streaming service. The show would be ideally 10 episodes and a few seasons to get to the heart of the characters in the younger years. Imagine a time machine that will transport us back to the origins of Rocky, a cinematic world brimming with characters that have been beloved by people around the world for nearly 5 decades.
How's the scale work again? 1's the best.
1 is fine. 10 is awful.
10.
Yeah, you really do not want a Rocky sequel.
I really do not want a Rocky prequel. Hey, if anyone out there has watched Creed and you're like, man, is there a prequel origin story for this Rocky Balboa character? He seems really interesting in these Creed movies. Hey, yeah let me tell you, it's called Rocky.
You don't want young Rocky.
That is young Rocky. He's like fucking 20 in that movie. It's literally him.
I thought he's like
being
older.
a nobody, and then it's the whole movie. What do I want a prequel for?
I don't know. Yeah, it's an odd one. Yeah, because Rocky's like rags to riches story. So why do you want to see more rags? You know, of just him not succeeding. No. So Rocky Balboa was a journeyman southpaw boxer. So I imagine he wasn't 20. He was probably older, but you know, been around for a while.
Have you seen Rocky?
No, I haven't. I've watched the first half hour.
Look, it's an old time. One of the greatest movies of all time. I needed to watch something.
I need to find time to watch it with subtitles.
Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, fantastic. 4, not so much.
Listen,
it's okay. 5, shit.
I'll tell you what, when Michael B. Jordan's Creed 3 comes out, we'll do a Rocky rewatch.
We gotta do. I gotta force you to watch good movies somehow over here.
Alright. Let's finish up this episode of What Do You Want to Watch with our What Do You Want to Watch top 3.
Definitely in the top 3.
Yeah, so in the wake of Mighty Ducks Game Changers, Coming to America, a bunch of other these kind of properties, I thought, hey, let's do... No, actually, the news story that got me to think of this top 3 this week was Donald Faison being cast as the professor in the Powerpuff TV show, which is going to be set 10-something years after the events of Powerpuff Girls. Doing top 3 legacy sequels we want to see. So these are sequels set however many years after the original or the last film in the series or show. But, you know, there's like obviously 10, 20 year time gap, that kind of thing. Like your Mighty Ducks Game Changers, like your Coming to Americas. You're coming TWO America and those kind of films. So Dylan, you had fun with this one?
No, I found this one quite hard because there's actually not many movies I can think of that I legit wanted.
I'll be honest with you, I found this difficult as well, mostly because I forgot to do it until like 2 hours ago.
So I'll admit I had one that comes straight to my mind. I had a second one that I was like, yeah, that's probably a good choice. And then my third and fourth pick, I wrote down and then went, wait, I think that's more top 3 sequels I just want, more so than franchises they're returning. So then they got scratched. And then what ended up being my last pick, I've stolen from someone else. That's not on this podcast.
So, number 3, I'm guessing is the stolen one. What's your number 3?
Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with number 3. Stealing it to Jaws!
Yeah, okay.
You know why we want more Jaws, Ash?
Because we want more shark.
Because we want more fucking sharks.
There's not enough shark movies out
Not enough
anymore.
shark movies, yeah. So I think Buddy Watson from Radio Watson will be quite pleased to hear that I request the return of the Jaws franchise to come back. It's been well overdue. We're sick of all these other movies.
It's got to be the same Jaws. The same shark. All the other characters would have been... Are there any still around? Other actors from the original?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all dead. No, someone would be alive.
Oh no, like in the film they were killed? But
yeah, most of them were killed. I mean, the shark ate them, to be fair. So, but no, let's get back to the roots. Let's have Jaws. Steven Spielberg can return. I've got it sorted.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's about to retire. Just the Jaws, final Jaws.
Yeah, that's it. That's his last movie. He's like, that's it. I'm coming back. The Jaws.
The Jaws.
That's what it has to be called. The Jaws.
All right. My number 3, fittingly, 3 Ninjas. Franchise I loved as a child. Bring back the 3 Ninjas. Let them all be old people. They've all got children. And then there's a new generation of 3 Ninjas. Maybe it's 9 ninjas now. They all have 3 kids. I don't know. But, they all have weird names, different colors, and fight. Have weird, wacky adventures and that shit. I thought that would be a fun, quirky one to bring back. 3 Ninjas. Yeah.
Did you know Hulk Hogan was in 3 Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain?
I did know. What a great film.
I don't think he'll be back.
Need more movies set at theme parks. Just put it out there. I don't think he'll come back.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, but we need more Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum. I think everybody will agree. Dylan, what's your number 2?
Number 2 is Tron. It's been 11 years since Tron Legacy. How many years between Tron 1 and Tron Legacy? I like Tron Legacy, and I'm not saying I would rate it quite high. It's probably be around like maybe a 6 if I'm being nice, kind of thing. But there's a lot to like about that movie. It just doesn't come together. And I remember leaving the theater being like, damn, they had all the pieces, but they didn't get them together correct. It's one of those movies where you're like, fuck, they were close. They just needed to figure out the rest of this puzzle.
Director's cut.
Yeah, well, I don't think this is a director's cut solution thing. It's a script director problem, possibly, I'd say. But no, that world and that franchise is always so cool. I liked Tron when I watched it as a kid, but before you had any idea what was bad and good special effects. If you never watched Tron, the original, as a kid, and you try and watch it now, I'm sure it'll be quite a struggle for you. If it just, I mean, for its day and age, like it's quite special. The special effects and stuff they do in that, but doesn't hold up too well. But no, it's been 11 years since Tron Legacy. It's I reckon that franchise and that world in a day and age where Ready Player One's the cool thing, and Jumanji Ready Player 2 is a good thing, and what's the new one now? Space Jam Ready Player 3 is a good thing. Like all these movies are basically video game big event smash boards. Yeah, bring back the OG Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacy gets plugged into the internet.
Sure. Tron. No, you know what I call it? Ready for this? The Tron.
Wow. What?
Yeah.
Incredible. Tron Legacy, the Tron.
Thank you.
What a franchise. My number 2, Hellboy. The Guillermo del Toro version. Give us Hellboy 3. You failed miserably with the David Arbor version. Bring back Ron Perlman.
Did you actually watch that?
Yes, I
By
did.
the way, okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it wasn't that good. Bring back Ron Perlman. And he's even more older and more crotchety and angry. That'll be interesting. Selma Blair will be older. Maybe what they meant to. Did they have kids at the end of? I feel like that was the thing. She was pregnant at the end of Hellboy 2.
I honestly could not tell you.
See, so you could have 2 little pale children running around, setting fire to everything. I'm gonna have to look this up. Yes, so spoilers. She reveals she's pregnant with twins at the end of the film. So that's something, I think they had plans for it, Hellboy 3. Things got in the way, but, just throw a stack of money at Guillermo, and he'll come back. And throw a bunch of red paint on Ron.
Maybe
make
Ron
it a bit
Perlman's
easier.
done. Maybe he's over it,
But yeah, bring that back. So Dylan, what's your number 1?
My number 1, I don't think this is cheating because it did technically get a reboot a couple years ago, but I want Brendan Fraser's The Mummy to come back. I don't want Tom Cruise The Mummy bullshit. I don't want someone else playing The Mummy franchise bullshit. I want Brendan Fraser as what's the character's name? Rick O'Connell, right? There we go. There's the full name of the character. I want him. I want Rachel Weisz. I want the OG crew back for the proper 3rd film in that franchise. Now, it may be like Dylan, but there was 3. There was the original trilogy. You're wrong.
No.
Because in the 3rd one...
Scorpion King was a spin-off.
No. There's a... I can't remember the name of it. Let me find it real quickly. In the 3rd one, which was called... Can I never find it fast enough? The Mummy... Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which was the 3rd one and the end of the Brendan Fraser trilogy of that. They recast Rachel Weisz. She was her character was then played by Maria Bello. And Jet Li's in this one, Michelle Yeoh's in this one. Like, there's some cool people in this, but it's just not very good. And the recasting of her just kind of stung and made it feel a bit weird. And in my opinion, ruins the trilogy. So what I would like is to forget that film and they bring it back.
So you want a sequel to The Mummy 2?
Yeah, The Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
Right? So how about this, Ash?
Yeah.
The Mummy Returns. Again.
Wow, I love this naming convention. I'm on board.
No, but this is the only one that, like, when you said this segment, the first thing that came to my mind was like this. Because Brendan Fraser, he's on a comeback, like, remember when was it, last year or the year before? I remember reading that article about how, like, he got bullied on the internet and all this sort of shit, and he was really struggling with mental health and all this sort of stuff, and he really felt bad for him. So it's really good seeing, he's on this comeback at the moment.
Back, yeah.
He's on his way back. I'm like, now's the time. The Mummy returns again. Finish the trilogy. # restore the Fraserverse.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bring that back. Do George of the Jungle 2 properly. Do a sequel to Encino Man. Everything.
Bucket. Do the full Fraser. Man, he was actually my favorite actor as a kid, by the way. Like, I watched all of his...
everything, yeah.
Young teen, whatever you want to call him. Like,
listen, he better show up in Space Jam. Seeing as in Looney Tunes back in action.
Watch that at the cinema.
Yeah,
good shit.
Same. My number 1, probably not a surprise to anybody. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Do the sequel 20 years after, where he's raising the kids who then go on to Legend of Korra. They've obviously set up the studio. They're going to be doing stories, but yeah, set it there, right in the midpoint with the little Tenzin. And that, show us the Avatar being an actual solid, proper Avatar. A grown-up Avatar. We haven't seen a grown-up Avatar. They've always just been kids growing up, dealing with these huge problems. Show us how they made Republic City in that. Yeah. I think that would be really interesting, and very more adult take on the franchise than, the kid-focused stuff, which is really great. I love all that as well, but, Avatar Studios, if you're listening, that's what I would like. I'll tell you what, I did have some crazy notions of this top 3. You know what? Another one? Babe. Give me a Babe 3. Just old man Babe. Depressed. Because there's no other pigs on the farm.
Why?
Because what are you going to do with a bunch of pigs if you can't kill them to eat them? So the farmer doesn't get any more pigs.
Why do you want this movie? Why do you want to watch this?
I don't know. I just want to... why have only 2 when you can have 3?
Those movies are for kids, I hope you know.
Yeah. It'll be about learning to accept the inevitability of the end.
They made that movie. It's called Okja.
Oh, okay. That's Babe 3.
I mean, you change it to a pig instead of a pig-like creature, sure.
Okay. I also put Inspector Gadget. I like the first Inspector Gadget movie.
With
imagine one set
what's his face?
20 years later, where none of his
Broderick?
stuff is very as cool as the drones and shit they've got now.
I love that movie as a kid, actually. I remember they had, I got a bunch of toys. I collected all toys. They had it like McDonald's or KFC or some shit.
Yeah.
Back when they used to do good toys. Yeah.
Now it's like
really...
some blob or a car.
Yeah. Or, I mean, they did those Pokemon cards in America. We didn't get those at least, but... Yeah.
It's because they're not allowed to promote the toys. That's why they don't even bother anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point of putting something cool in there if you're not allowed to make money off of it?
Which is funny, because as a child, I was like, did I want the cheeseburger more, or did I want the toy more? And I actually think I wanted the toy more at times, Like, the food was nice, but I kind of just wanted the toy.
Yeah.
So, I reckon if they put the toy with a salad, and I didn't know any different, we just fucking ate it,
Yeah. Maybe that's what they should do. You're allowed to advertise, but it's got to be with a salad.
Yeah. I don't know why haven't they done that? They just get more people to buy fucking health food.
Yeah. Weird. Crazy. All right. Well, let us know what you thought. What's your top 3? Let us know on Twitter by going to explosionnetwork.com/Twitter, or you can let us know in our Discord by going to explosionnetwork.com/Discord. If you want to help us out, leave us a review either on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser or Twitter, or just tell a friend about the show. Just tell them to listen to the show. This was a good one. If you like this episode and thought it was worth $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosionnetwork.com/support and buy us a coffee. Every little bit of financial help helps. That's why it's called help. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.